This is going to be the lab section for the virtual WAN, and where we are going to build a virtual WAN with the hub connecting multiple VNets. As we know, the virtual WAN resource represent a virtual overlay of your Azure network, and it is a collection of multiple resources. So the virtual WAN, it is going to be tagged to the resource group. So let's start building those virtual WAN. Log into Microsoft Azure console and find out the services which is going to be virtual WAN. When you click on that, you can create from this option or can create from here. So let's try to create a resource group. It has to be tagged to one of the resource group. I'm going to use this one. Let's keep it in East US, and you need to give it a name. WAN. I will simply put WAN. And it comes to the SKU. You have option for the basic and the standard, and the only difference is the capacity. So I will go for the standard one where you see all the features. Validation is passed. Now hit the create. Now my virtual WAN resource is ready. Let's hit go to resource. In the overview, you can see there's an option for delete, refresh, and which resource group it is part of, what is the location for this virtual WAN. So you see your status succeed, and then you have view topology option. Under the configuration, branch to branch is enabled, hub to hub is enabled, and then let's go to the hub. Then you have VPN sites, user VPN configuration, express route circuits, and virtual network connections. We will start from building the virtual hub first. Let's start building the basic topology, and we will start from the hub. So go to the hub section, create a new hub, and this time you need to, so this is going to be the heart of this whole thing. So you need to choose this region where you want to deploy the hub very carefully. So we will go for this one because we are adjacent to the labs environment. Resource group is already chosen. Region is going to be East US. However, you have option where you want to deploy it. So let's give it a name. This is a hub. So I will just put hub one. So this is going to be the first hub. And now it is asking for a range. So all the resources, whatever you manage, it is they need some sort of the IP address, and minimum requirement is going to be the /24. Let's try that, whether you can put something else also. So if I choose this thing, so here you can see the valid range is going to be /24. However, you want to go for the higher range, that is also possible. So for example, instead of that, I can go for 16. Minimum requirement is /24. You cannot go below that. And now it comes to the capacity. So the capacity, it depends how many routing infrastructure you need, what is going to be the total throughput of this router, and then how many endpoint you are going to deploy. Those are going to be attached to all the VNets. For example, if you're doing the VNet to VNet peering, so it will consider all those VMs as a part of this range. So make sure you, whatever the deployment model you have, that is going to be supported by these units. You can also start from here, anywhere else, and you will have an option to edit the throughput. There's a big range also. So we will go for the minimum. Hub routing preference, express route, VPN, AS path. This is going to be a very interesting topic when it comes to the routing in Azure. So what is happening here, if you look into this section, It is giving you three options: Express Route, VPN, and AS path. What happens when your virtual hub, virtual WAN, and inside you are going to a hub? And you might have a scenario that if this is your on-prem data center, you might have Express Route, the ER circuit, and maybe on the backup you're running some sort of the VPN. So what will happen? You're going to learn the prefix, whatever it is on site, from two path. Now you need to make a decision. So decision happens based on three things. First, it is going to be the longest prefix match, LPM. Then it is going to prefer the static route over the BGP routes. And then you have best path based on the HRP configuration, which is going to be this one. These routing scenarios can be very, very complex as well. So by default, this HRP preference is going to be the express route. And there is a reason also which we need to keep in mind. So maybe my topology is something like that. I have a virtual WAN, and under that I have two hubs and the two sides, and maybe the subnets what you're sending, they're almost same. So if it is a ER circuit, then you might have, let's say this is ER, and then you might have another branch. From here you might have the VPN sort of things. So resources here connecting to this hub, they should be transited something like that, and that is the reason everything should be considered which is locally learned. So that is the reason this preference comes very handy. So express route, as I said, it is going to be the default settings. It prefers route from connections local to the virtual hub over the route learned from the remote hub. It means what I said is locally going to prefer all these things, but you might have some situation this hub 1 is talking to the hub 2 and same prefix, it is coming from here, it is going back. So this hub basically need to make a decision, and this is decision going to be basically based on all these preferences. Then you have a second option, which is the VPN. So if you have ER connection and you have VPN also, you can also tweak this. Then the third option is AS path. It prefers route with the shortest BGP AS path length, irrespective of the source of the route advertisement. So these are the three options you need to consider carefully when you design your virtual hub routing. So as of now, we'll keep it default to the express route and hit review and create. It will take some time, let the validation pass, and then I'm going to hit the create button. I'm going to pause this video, let this get completed, then we resume. Now let's verify the configuration. So under the virtual WAN, we have this virtual WAN, and in this virtual WAN, you should see the hubs. So we'll go to the hubs, and in hub, we have our first hub, which is hub 1. Click on that, and now you see the options under the overview. You can create virtual network connections, you can create VPN site to site, you can also create user VPN, which is going to be point to site. Then you can also protect your virtual hub with the Azure firewall, then option for express route. And this is something which is very special. You can also deploy your network virtual appliances. So let's explore one by one. So the first thing first, we will see how we can create virtual network connections. So click on that. For virtual network connection, it is a kind of the peering what we have done in our previous lessons. So you can add a connection. While adding a connection, you need to give it a name, VNet 1 or something, whatever makes sense to you. Then choose the hub, resource group. This is going to be the remote resource group which VNet you want to connect to. So if I choose ARM, that means it is going to propagate a list of the VNet under that particular resource group. So I have only one VNet, and then you have an option for routing configuration where you can set propagate to none or yes. Associate a routing table, you can see default and none. Then propagate this to the route table, which is default one. Propagate to the label, you can put a label also. Then you have option for the static route and propagate static route. Then you can hit the create. So before we put all these fields, let's just discuss what it means to you. Let's try to understand the routing table first. So routing table you can find under virtual hub, and in this case we are exploring hub 1. So there are two tables by default. One is named as a default, another one is named as none. So by default, all the routes learned either from VPN, ER connection, point to site, and all those things will go under the default. You have option to choose it to the none. In none route table is also available for each virtual hub. Propagating to the none route table implies that no route are required to be propagated from this connection. So choose it very carefully. By default, is going to be the default table. Then you have option to create the routing table and all those things from here itself. So let's try to explore what you can do. From the portal, you can see there's a default routing table and there's one which is called none. You have option to create another routing table. So let's try to create one. And in this case, I need to give it a name, which is going to be the test RT. And then you see there's a route which you can add as well. So destination prefix, what is going to be the next hop, all those things you can put here. And let's go to the label, then association. Now go to the propagation and let's try to create this one. Now you immediately see there is one test RT which is getting updated. So as I mentioned earlier, when you want to do some sort of micro segmentation, then this feature comes very handy. You might need to create multiple route table based on how complex is going to be the network design. Now this test RT route table is configured and status is succeeded. So you can go back to your hub, and from here, if I try to add virtual network connections, so let's try to add one. This is still loading. I'm not sure why this is too slow. Yep, now we can see it. So let's try to add connection. And this is going to be kind of the VNet pairing. So I will just name it as VNet pairing 1 maybe. Choose your hub and resource group. This time let's put the resource group where I have one VNet, which is going to be this one. And propagate to none, keep it none. Otherwise, this is not going to be effective. Now you need to associate whatever you're going to learn. So this connection, whatever the routes you learn, it should be associated. By default, it is going to be default routing table. You have option for none and you have option for test also. So we will choose this time default. And now let's create it. Same time, let's also add another connection. This time I want to name it peering 2. Hub is going to be the same. Resource group. Let me see if I have something here. And there's one. Route table default, 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 and create it. And this time, see how easy it is. Earlier also we have seen creating those peering individually from the VNets, and this time everything is just managed from the centralized point. Let me refresh it again. It is succeeded, connected, connected. And now what you can see, you can look for the effective routes. So we'll go to our hub again, and under the hub, you can see effective routes. Choose your routing table. Let me try to do it again. We wanted to see for the default one. I think at this moment there's a peering which got added, so it should show you now. Yes, and now we can see the routes. So for the first VNet, you see 10.0.0.16, and next hop type is a virtual network connection. And second, also you can see virtual network connection. So this time, these VNets, they are going to talk to each other. And now think about a scenario, you might have multiple VNets, and these consider these two, they want to talk to each other. But maybe when you want to add the third and fourth, you want to keep those routing table separately. That time what you can do, very similarly, when you add the pairing, you can call your next routing table. So it is kind of the VRF concept where you have multiple routing table, they are isolated to each other. This diagram I have taken from Azure documentation. So what it is trying to explain, each time you're going to add a connection, it is going to be associated to a route table, and that route table can be either default or it can be created by yourself. It's depend on the scenarios what you want to perform. So by default, there's going to be one table. So let's take an example. If I consider this as a table, and in my network, this is your virtual hub, and I have one VNet 1, VNet 2, and then have an on-prem, and they want to talk to each other. So what will happen? This connection, this connection, and this connection, it has to be associated to the routing table of hub. So once it comes to route consultation, for example, on-prem is sending some traffic to VNet 1 or maybe VNet 2, it comes to hub, and from hub it will be decided whether it has to go this way or it has to go this way. And that consultation comes from a routing table, and your routing table will look like this. My destination 10.1.0.0.16, that is your VNet connection 1, 10.2.0.0.16, that is VNet connection 2, and then you have two subnet, those are coming from the VPN gateway connection. The second important point is your route propagation. Connections dynamically propagate route to the routing table. With the VPN connection, express route connection, or maybe point to site configuration connection, routes are propagated from virtual hub to on-premises router using the BGP. So routes can be propagated to one or more multiple route tables. So here you can see in the example in the diagram, I've created VNet 1 connection, and that is associated to the default route table, and the routes are being propagated to default route table. So let's take a look how it can be propagated to multiple tables. So this time, try to add one more connection, and that connection I will name it VNet peering 3. Hub is going to be the same. Resource group, let's choose this firewall resource group. There's a VNet, and then associate a route table. So if, for example, I have two VNets under this resource group, and I want to create a separate route table. So what I will do to do the isolation, this time I will choose your test RT, propagate this to test RT, and now you see you have an option. I can still propagate this to default and test RT both. So this is the option I was telling. Maybe you have some sort of the requirement, your on-prem network is common and you have a two business. So VNet 1, VNet 2 is a part of one business, VNet 3 and 4, they are part of the separate business. And these businesses, they do not talk to each other, but they do talk to on-prem for some services. So this is how you can design it and do the route propagation. Now let's look into other options. Go to the overview again and let's choose hub. And in hub, you can see now we have two virtual network connections, site to site, point to site, express route, firewall, and network virtual appliance. So let's try to explore network virtual appliances, what we can do from here. So this network virtual appliance, it can be part of your virtual hub. So if I try to create appliance, these are the options you are going to have. These virtual appliances can be your SD-WAN, and this SD-WAN, basically you can see this is from Cisco. Then you have firewalls as well. Then you have checkpoint. So let's assume we are going to connect it to the SD-WAN deployment. So if you can go to the create. So all these things are also available in the marketplace. And from here, you can review your design, what exactly you want to do with the SD-WAN, and choose the plan, licenses, and all those options. You can deploy it from here. The other thing I wanted to show you, a firewall deployment. So earlier we have seen we deployed those Azure firewall for individual VNet hub, and this time you can also have a secured hub. So at this moment, there's no firewall deployment. However, you can create a firewall which is going to be part of this. You can also run BGP from your virtual hub to a NVA which is going to be part of some other VNet. So in this case, what is needed, you should have these hub to VNet pairing just for the reachability, and then top of that you can run your BGP configuration. Now let's take a look from the portal how it looks like. So under the virtual hub, you can see an option for BGP peering. And if you go and click on add, what do we see? We need to give it a name for the BGP peer. Then you need to choose the ASN number. If you click here, a 16-bit ASN that cannot be a range between 65515 and 65520. Choose that ASN number, put the IP address where you want to peer. So this is going to be the IP address configured on your NVA. And top of that, you need to choose where that sits in, which peering it is part of. So if it is part of the first peering, then you need to choose the first one, or you can go for the second one and then click add. Since we know this virtual hub doesn't have any firewall protection, however, you can enable this hub into the secured hub. How we can do it, you just need to choose your hub option which you want to convert, go to the manage security, deploy a firewall with existing policy, and you also have an option for go for third party as well. So we'll click on the first option, and in this option what we are going to see, you have option to choose which tier you want to, and then default deny policy will be applied if you have chosen no policy. So you can review and confirm, and then you can later on edit those policies, what you want to allow or what you want to inspect.